This next demo is on how to start the Jeep ad exercise. You want to start by downloading the Jeep ad from Assignments in Blackboard. And if you open it up, you can see the file management is already set up for you. Okay, we have three raster files. They are TIFFs. We have an Illustrator file, a Jeep logo in the vector folder, and we have our handout. We have our body copy, and we have a PDF of what the ad should look like. So, first thing we want to do is make a new document in InDesign. And we're going to turn off facing pages. This is a single page. The width is 8.5. The width is 8.5, and the height is 5.5. We're going with 2 columns and 0.2 gutter. And the margin is 1/4 inch all the way around. So that should work for us. Once we have our document created, we'll need to create 2 Pantone spot colors. Okay, these are going to be uncoded colors. So what I'm going to do is go into a little drop down on the swatch palette, get a new color swatch, going to switch process to spot, and we're looking for Pantone solid uncoded. And the first number we want is 385. Okay, there's 385 uncoded, and we're going to add that to our swatches. The other color that we need is 4515. And we'll add that color to our swatches and then click on Done. So we have those in there. Our next step is to start with our first picture box, which is a 5-point rule. So what I'm going to do is just make a picture box anywhere on the page. I'm going to crank the stroke up to 5 points, and I'm going to color it 385, which is our darker green. Okay, now I'm going to use my control panel up here to position it. So I have my upper left reference point. I'm going to give the X a 0, then tab to the Y, and that's 0. Tab again to the width, which is 8.5, and the height is 5.5, and hit return. And that is my first picture box with the rule. Okay, the second picture box I'm going to just drag, and it goes right on the 1/4 inch margin. Okay, if I look at the specs, it's a 3-point rule, and it is 385. Okay, next thing I want to do is bring in some ruler guides. So I'm going to drag a vertical ruler guide over to a 1/2 inch, and then another one all the way over to 8 inches. And now we need some horizontal ruler guides. I'm going to drag one down to a 1/2 inch. And one to 1 3/4. And then another guide down to 5 inches. Okay, and we'll use these ruler guides to line up our images and text. All right, the next step is to bring in the Old Willys Jeep into the second picture box. So I'm going to select it, going to hit Command D, and I need to navigate to my GPad on the desktop and get the Willys TIFF. This is a black and white image, and we'll be coloring this in InDesign. So we know that if we take the direct selection tool and select our image, we'll get the brown bounding box, and we notice it is black, it is colored black, black and white image, and we're going to make this, our color is going to be 4515, okay, and then we're going to tint that back to 60%. This way we will be able to put type over top of it. Okay, so we got that ghosted back. That's looking pretty good. Okay, the next step, I'm going to bring in my headline. So I'm going to make a text box in this area here. And off to the side, I'm going to bring in the raw text. So I'll hit Command D, into the GPad, into the working folder, and get the Word file. Okay, there it is. So that's my raw text for my copy. Now in my text box I created, I'm just going to type the headline. Okay, and I'll highlight that. And looking for stencil. Here's our stencil font. Okay, now this font only comes in all caps, so we can't go big caps, little caps like we did on the bike ad. But what it tells us in our specs is that we're going to color these differently or size them differently. So first we're going to make it all 70 point. And we'll open this up so we can see it all. We're going to color this type with our dark green color, Pantone 385. Okay. It tells us the horizontal scale on here is going to be 90. That's going to condense it some. Okay, that's looking good. And it also tells us on our specs that we're going to change the cap letters to 90 point. So I'll highlight that and go from 70 to 90. And do that on the initial caps. Okay, and we've got our headline working here. And I'll just nudge it up to the ruler guide. Okay, there's our headline. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to grab the text box and drag it over here and place it. And pull this into one column, to the first column. Then I'm just going to click in here with my type tool and hit Command A. And we want to look at the specs for the body copy. And it tells us it's 12/13 times. Okay, so Going to go 12 point for the copy, and the leading is going to be 13. Remember, we never use auto leading. Okay, and we want to make it times. And we'll go times regular. There we go. Okay, it's also calling for a 3-line drop cap. So with this whole paragraph selected, actually let's take a look at our invisibles, Option Command I. Okay, and we just want to get the first paragraph, not everything. So I'm going to highlight that paragraph. And we're going to make this a 3-line drop cap. And this is, that's baseline shift. Go into, we'll look at our character palette, Command T. And here's our drop cap, located in the paragraph part of our control panel. So we want to make that a 3-line drop cap, okay? And it tells us we want to color that T385. So I'll go ahead and select that, just the T, and we'll make him 385. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now we have an image we're going to put on the right column, so I will make a rectangle frame for that. And if we look at the specs, it gives us our width and height for that. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. And we're doing a width of 3.65 and a height of 2.6023. 6023. So that's the size for our picture box. And now we'll go ahead and get the image. Command D. And we want the Jeep 4 TIFF. Okay, comes in, and it tells us on our specs we're going to scale that to 45%. So I can look for the donut and click. I'll go up here under my, where it says 100%, and we're going to make that 45. Hit return, and that's the correct size. And then we just want to pull this guy down in here and get him working. Okay. Next thing we want to do is place an image in here, and we want to do a text wrap for our interior. So I'm going to make a rectangle frame or picture box. Okay. And if we look at the size on our specs, our width is going to be 1.6. And our height is 1.2. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and bring our image in. So Command D. This time we want the interior. Okay. Now this is a black and white. And we'll be coloring this also at 385. So I'll just go ahead and take my direct selection tool and select it. And in my swatches, I'm going to switch it from a black and white, which we see here, to 385. That's our correct color. Now you notice it's too big. It's telling us that we want to scale it at 50%. So I'm going to go up here and make it 50. And then we'll pull it in here. Now we kind of want to look at our layout on our handout to kind of get the correct crop on it. And it looks something like that. It also tells us we're going to put a text wrap on it of 0.125. So if you remember, our text wrap palette is Option Command W. Okay, and we're going to do a bounding box wrap, and we're going to make it 0.125, which is an 1/8 inch. Okay, so we got that on there. Now we want to try to get the exact wrap on here, and this is the tricky part. So I'm going to start nudging this down. If we look at our handout, we have 5 lines above. Okay, that's working pretty good. Okay. Okay. We're going to separate these paragraphs a little bit, so I'm going to triple click on this line. I'm going to do a space after because that's how we separate paragraphs correctly. Okay, and we'll take a look at that. I think it looks pretty good. We'll try one more click on that. There we are. Okay, now we need to do our hanging indents. And that's so these bullets can hang out here. So to do that, if you remember from the demo, we click right after the bullet, okay, and we do Command // and it kicks those over and hangs them. And we want to do the same thing by standard, Command // okay, and that gives us our hanging indents. Okay, probably be a good idea to save this. Shouldn't wait this long to save something, because remember, it could crash on you and then you lose all your work. So remember, we always float it. We float inside our folder, our project folder. And I'm just going to put my name on it. And we'll get it saved in there. Okay, looking pretty good. All right, the last thing we need to do, if we go back and look at our handout, is we're going to do this text box here. And we're going to put a Jeep logo in there. So take a look at those specs. Okay, I'm going to start off by making a text box. Okay, and it gives us the specs for the text box. It tells us the width is going to be 4.15. That's over here, width 4.15. And the height is going to be 0.5, ½ inch. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and type in there in all caps. There's only one. And we'll highlight that. And we're going to make that 13-point stencil. So we'll crank it up to 13. I'll switch it to our stencil font. Okay. Tells us to make the horizontal scale 90, just like we did on our headline. So we'll go in here and do a 90 horizontal scale. Okay. We're going to center it vertically. That's up and down. So if you remember with our Command B, text frame options, we're going to do a vertical justification, centered. That puts it up and down. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we're going to do a left indent of 1.5. So we're going to OK this. And then if we look at our paragraph part, we're doing a left indent of 1.5, 1.5 inch. And that kicks that over where we need it. Now it tells us we're going to make it white. We're going to color it white. Remember, that's paper in InDesign. Okay, and then it tells us we're going to color our text box 385. Okay, there we go. The last thing we need to do is place our Jeep logo in there. So I'm going to make a little picture box for that. Command D. Need to go back to my vector folder and get the Jeep logo. Okay, notice how it's bitmapped. And we know it's vector, it should be nice and sharp, so we're going to go View, Display Performance, High Quality Display. That's looking good. And we need to scale it down to 72%. Okay, and then we're just going to pull it down and get it centered in there. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to do a final save. And we will save and replace. And there it is. And that's how you complete the Jeep ad exercise.